Movie lovers and cinephiles around the world, welcome back to another edition of Andy Takes On. And in today's episode, Andy takes on Wrath of Man. That's right, Guy Ritchie is back with another movie. And this time around, if you're familiar with his work, having seen maybe Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and also the movie Snatch, you know that he's got a very particular visual style. Well, this time around with Wrath of Man, it's an adaptation of a French movie called Le Conveilleur. Listen, I'm not sure, je ne parle français, so excuse me, my French people, I don't speak the language, so I might have messed that up, but this movie is adapting that. So being a Guy Ritchie movie, it's got the usual bells and whistles, that's guns, gore, and gangsters, but also has a few differences or departures from his usual style, in that it's got an American setting, stars only one Englishman, and has slower paced dialogue. But of course, I'm going to tell you all about that because as you know, I'm here about the movie. Wrath of Man is part revenge flick and part heist movie and is told from the perspective of both the robbers and the grieving or vengeful father. So we first meet Patrick Hill on his first day at work at a company called Fortico, which appears to be a cash in transit company. And you can immediately tell from his general don't approach me demeanor and his skill set that this man is here for something more than what it appears on the surface.
Oh, no, I can talk. I just don't want to talk to you.
He's here to do a job, and being a security guard just ain't it. He seems to be searching for something or someone, and as the story progresses, we learn that Patrick is not only a powerful gangster, but also a grieving father to a murdered son.
Father to a murdered son?
His son was murdered at the beginning of the movie in a botched robbery committed against one of the CIT trucks that Fortico runs. And this was the fault of a crew of robbers, amongst whom was one fellow who had a particularly itchy trigger finger. So after a city-wide tour of murder, torture, and mayhem bring him no closer to uncovering the identity of the people who committed this crime, Patrick concludes that it has to have been an inside job. And the best way for him to uncover the people that he's searching for is to infiltrate Fortico, pose as a guard, and get to the bottom of this. Now, did I mention that he's a powerful gangster? As you know, powerful gangsters tend to have powerful money. And as a man of means, he's easily able to infiltrate Fortico and slip into his secret identity whilst he does undercover work. And as fate would have it, not long after, 3 months, 5 months. Actually, the time issue is one of the things that you'll see is a bit difficult to grasp about this film because Guy Ritchie tried this thing where he tells the stories out of sequence, more like Chris Nolan than Guy Ritchie. So things that happen in the future are shown before things that happen in the past and so forth. It takes a bit of a while to get into it, but then you eventually get there. So, not long after Patrick infiltrates Fortico, the robbery crew comes back and decide that they're going to pull off their final ultimate heist. On a separate note, I sometimes wonder, in terms of the chicken and the egg, when it comes to crimes and depictions of crime in media that's on TV and in movies, which one comes first? Because there are things that I never thought to do until I saw them in the movie. I was like, so that's how you pick a lock. Thank you, Sarah Connor. Thank you very much. But I digress. So in an act of unbridled greed, the robbery crew decides that they're going to pull off a fantastic final score. And instead of hitting just one cash in transit truck whilst it's in transit, they're going to hit all of them. How? By hitting the depot where the money gets stored before being deployed. They intend to bring a whole new meaning to Black Friday. Now, as we know, whenever people in movies turn to do a final heist or a final job, it always goes well.
You serious?
It doesn't. And this doesn't either. So it's at this point that the director then almost pauses the movie and restarts it, but now from the perspective of the bank robbers. So we get to see the events of the day in which Patrick's son,
His name was Dougie.
Dougie, was killed. And we're seeing it from their perspective. We learn a little bit more about them, seeing that they are ex-military. These are soldiers who are now living the regular humdrum 9-to-5 life, and it is not going well for them.
We're built for combat, not daytime TV.
Because they are not getting a chance to use their very specialized set of skills, like Liam Neeson.
My colleagues and I have acquired a very particular set of skills.
But unlike Liam Neeson, they are the ones doing the taking. And when they happen to have an inside man at Fortico, they decide that what they're going to take is money that is in transit. And that's how we arrive, where we get to them shooting Patrick's son. Because even though all of these guys are criminals, the director or the movie makers do this thing where they decide that one amongst them is the most criminal of criminals because he's the one who seems to enjoy spending money and spending bullets in equal measure. So things come to a head when they try to rob the depot with Patrick inside it. So you remember that special set of skills that these guys have? Well, it turns out Patrick has them too, and he puts them to use in spectacular fashion as a literal bloodbath ensues. So, will Patrick get to exact his revenge? Will the robbers manage to get away with their perfect score? And even if they do, how long is it going to be before they turn on each other? Because there is a saying amongst my people. We say, Mbava hadzigerane. Or is that Matsotsi? Matsotsi hagerane. Whatever the case might be, it literally translates to, thieves don't give each other haircuts. But the actual meaning is more akin to there is no honor amongst thieves. And as you watch Wrath of Man, you get to see why. So if you want to look at the tonality and the themes of this movie, look, Jason Statham is on the cover of this thing, so no surprise that it's going to be his wrath that we are seeing being exacted on the evildoers. Now, in terms of the tone, there is a very tense and taut atmosphere that Guy Ritchie manages to maintain throughout the movie, thanks in no small part to Jason Statham's acting chops, because whenever you see him, you really do get a feeling like he's on the verge of exploding. But at the same time, it's helped by the very masterfully crafted score, the musical score, which helps to maintain that suspenseful atmosphere even as you're going throughout the movie. Being a revenge film, obviously one of the main themes is vengeance, and when we get to understand why Patrick is so close to exploding and the fact that he is a grieving parent who was he was present at the time when his son was killed, and under the circumstances in which his son was killed, you get to feel for him, you sympathize with him, and what he has is a righteous anger that then justifies everything that he's going to do throughout the course of the movie. Let's talk about the characters. So we've got Patrick. He's a resourceful gangster and he's a grieving parent.
I want you to understand how resourceful and serious I am.
And a killing machine. You always get the sense that he's just 2 seconds away from putting 2 bullets inside whoever he's standing next to. I think he was well executed. Jason Statham did a good job demonstrating that barely contained rage. Now, Dougie is less of a character and more of a plot device, as he's the one that we need to be able to get the ball rolling and get Patrick into Fortico, where he comes across characters like Bullet. Bullet seems to be a very affable guy, very cheerful guy. He's the audience surrogate in a way, in the sense that he's the one who explains to us the workings of Fortico, how the system works, and through him we get to understand the world into which Patrick has entered. Affable guy, always joking around with guys like Boy Sweat. Now, I kid you not, Boy Sweat is an actual name of one of the characters in this movie, played by Josh Hartnett. Thank you, just by the way, for bringing Josh Hartnett out. I know he goes into hibernation once every 5 years. He comes out and makes another movie, then disappears again. So it's always good to see him. And this time he's playing Boy Sweat, and he's one of the few characters in the movie, I think maybe the only character, who actually has anything approaching a story arc, because we see him at the beginning of the movie. He's cowardly. The cowardice demonstrated in how prepared he was to flee the scene when he should have been protecting his colleague and the money. And by the end of the film, he's ready to sacrifice himself in the line of duty to protect his colleagues and the money. But again, there is the elusive air of mystery around the whole set of characters that work at Fortico, because we know either he or one of his colleagues is actually the inside man who's working with Elvis's crew. Now, Elvis is a family man, ex-soldier, also jaded with the life of working 9 to 5. So he's here leading this crew of ex-soldiers, and they want to start getting a bit more than what life has so far been handing to them. Now, he's depicted as a family man, and I think that was a cop-out. I think that was the storyteller's way of trying to make us sympathize with him, because he can't be all bad if he's got a wife and children, and he hugs his wife goodbye before going to commit crimes, can he? So he's an ordinary, decent criminal. And this is meant to directly juxtapose him or contrast him with characters like Jan. Now, Jan is not a nice guy, all right? Remember that itchy trigger finger? He's got an itchy trigger hand. He doesn't follow orders, and he jeopardizes not only the mission, but jeopardizes the safety of his colleagues, because he doesn't observe the basic rules of being a criminal or a robber, which is don't rob people and then go buy expensive stuff that's beyond what your day job can afford. Okay, even I know that. Although that was a nice bike. Sweet ride. You might recognize him as Scott Eastwood, son of veteran actor Clint Eastwood, who was famously known for saying the line,
You gotta ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
well, do ya? So here's my take. Here's what I think. Revenge movies and heist movies are unique in storytelling in that, unlike conventional stories where you're looking at character development and character growth over the course of the progression of the film, these can actually choose to forego that. And what I mean is that in a revenge film or in a heist movie, it's about the objective. As long as we're working towards a specific objective, it doesn't matter if the characters grow. It doesn't matter if they learn any valuable lessons along the way. I mean, you can have that and it adds more depth, but even without it, you can still follow an angry father as he's searching for the people who killed his son and be rooting for him as he's taking them out one by one until he gets to the ultimate bad guy. Or you can follow a crew of thieves as they're planning and plotting how they're going to rob a casino, a bank, or a CIT truck and root for them or hate on them as they work towards that goal. So it's really about the objective, and Wrath of Man really falls neatly into both categories. Now, where I maybe had a bit of a problem with it was in the fact of the pacing. And by pacing, I'm talking here about the fact that Guy Ritchie tried a technique here, two things. Number one, he chaptered the movie, so it's split into chapters, which is fine. But where it was a bit disorienting was when he made the decision to play events out of their chronological sequence. Again, you've got things that happen in the future coming on screen before things that happen in the past, which is fine. But then I didn't really see any value that it added to the story, to the narrative, or even to your perception of events. It just gave you a false mystery to solve, and it brings you right back to where you'd have gone if you just went from point A to B as opposed to from point D to A and then to Z and then back to Y. But all in all, look, Wrath of Man is pure escapist fantasy, which is sadly lacking in the Hollywood of recent times, which seems hell-bent on preaching to us. So it's nice to be able to get into a movie where you just watch a good guy going against bad guys, and they duke it out, and then the good guy maybe wins in the end, maybe dies before. I don't know. I'm not going to spoil it for you. But it's a simple story that you can follow, have a good time, and walk out of there feeling entertained. So in my book, I'm giving it 3.5 out of a possible 5 stars. And that is Wrath of Man. So remember to continue commenting in the comment section, liking, subscribing, and sharing our content. And I hope to see you very soon. And those were my takeouts from Andy Takes on Wrath of Man. And I am taking off. I will see you next time.